Hello and welcome you crazy people. My name is Jay, and in this video we're going to be talking about the impact of the changes that might happen to Star Wars Legion because the game has moved from Fantasy Flight Games to Atomic Mass Games. Now, not everybody and everything has gone over, but the games have. Star Wars Legion is what we're going to be focusing on here, but obviously the Armada's moved and X-Wing has also moved over. So let me just bring up my notes, even though I know you can't see them, but yeah, just a couple of the major things that could change. Obviously, there's some things that may change and they might be a year, 2 years, 3 years down the line. But let's have a look at, what we might necessarily see in the short term and the long term. And one of the things I think we might see could be a simple case of better marketing. So I know it might sound a bit harsh, but this was a video that Marvel Crisis Protocol put up, Atomic Mass Games put up for Marvel Crisis Protocol, talking about, this is the Deadpool trailer. And I mean, what can you say about it? It is cool. It is cool for sure. I'm not necessarily expecting Fantasy Flight Games to do this for all of the games. That would be unrealistic, but Atomic Mass Games do seem to, they only had the one game, so they could really, really do cool stuff like this, and people would lap this up. Whether or not you are that interested in the game, I'm not really that interested in the game at this point in my life, but it's by the way, they're doing a voiceover of this, and it's all like a comedy thing, so you can obviously go and check it out if it's something you want to do. But better marketing is something we might see. We might see whether or not it's just more focused articles, because for Star Wars Legion, you pretty much get your announcement article maybe 6 months down the line, and then maybe 3 to 6 months down the line, and then you get a release article, which is right, it's come out and here's everything. Now, I can appreciate not wanting to give everything away because people will play that stuff on Tabletop Simulator and it perhaps can be a little bit weird, but they do live streams where they paint the miniatures and stuff like that, and because they were a bit more focused on Marvel Crisis Protocol, the marketing seemed to be more consistent and perhaps a little bit better, rather than just articles put on the website. Now, that's no disrespect to the people making the game, it's not even disrespect to FFG, because they had a lot of stuff to talk about: the card games, the board games, X-Wing, all the other games. Now, Marvel Crisis Protocol, Atomic Mass Games may suffer a little bit here by having now to concentrate on 4 games, plus the games that they've committed to, they've said, we're going to look at making more games. The fact that they're saying that, their focus is going to still be some focus on miniature games, sure, but the focus is perhaps taken a little bit away than what than what it used to be, kind of thing. So let me ditch that and we'll go back to that. So better marketing is one thing that could happen. If it does happen, great. I'm unlikely to personally be following the intricacies of when what card is getting released, because I just stopped caring about it that much. I'd rather now just go to my events and play them. But for some people who are really hyped and get into every little nook and cranny of the game, then better marketing could be a good thing. Now, there is an alternative to that. I say an alternative. A minor counterpoint to that could be, and might be, pricing. So if you look at the pricing for Marvel Crisis Protocol, it has a bit of a reputation of being expensive. Now, I think that comes down to when you look at model cost. Now, this isn't necessarily the case in the US. I think in the US they're a little bit lower. There seems to be a transatlantic divide here. But I'm in the UK, so that's what I'm looking at. And there's a bit of either a misconception, but there's a conception that Marvel Crisis Protocol is expensive. And I think when you look at it as per model, it probably is. But when you consider it per faction, it's probably not. Because let's face it, the core set is 80 quid, something like that. And you get that's everything you need to play. You can play with those 10 people, those 10 characters, just forever and ever and ever if you wanted to. Fine, perfect. Whereas, the start collecting box in Games Workshop or even Star Wars Legion, that's not the case. You buy your box and you still need to add more for a full game. Marvel Crisis Protocol is a skirmish game, you only need 10 miniatures, therefore the core set's fantastic. It's just when you come to looking at cost beyond that, you could maybe raise an eyebrow or two. So RRP, and I checked this on the Asmodee official website, that is actually the RRP, is £40 for 2 miniatures. For a lot of them, some of them are a little bit less. I think some of them are a little bit more, but the miniatures themselves tend to be actually a little bit bigger. But let's just say it's £40 for 2, or you could say one for 20. but obviously there's a massive discount from Element Games here, a 25% discount. So, yeah, right. So, and if you compare that to Star Wars Legion, well, one RRP miniature, one of the new characters who's on his way out, if he's not already out in some places, is £15. So, I mean, you might say that's only £5 less, but these kind of things do add up. Now, obviously, we have unit sizes and stuff like that. There's no guarantee that we actually that this will translate either. Maybe Star Wars Legion sells more. Maybe they can make them for a little bit less because they're going to sell more. Maybe it's the fact that in Star Wars Legion there's more miniatures, therefore, overall they want to charge you less. Whereas in Marvel Crisis Protocol, as I said, you only need 10. And if you were buying a new complete set of 10, well, what's that like for £200? If it was RRP, I'm not sure what this would be in I think Element Games it'd be 150. So for £200 you get your full new 10 characters. Right, fine. Doesn't sound that bad when you consider like a Games Workshop army is like, 300 quid. something 300, 400 quid sometimes. You can get them less for like 200 depending where you get the miniatures from. So I think cost is something that people might be rightly apprehensive about. Personally, it's not something I'm too worried about. I know that comes from a bit of a privileged place of not necessarily needing to be worried about it, but what I mean by not worried about it is I don't think it'll necessarily change. I think the pricing probably like takes into consideration some things that that are beyond my wisdom, if that makes sense. Now with that, you do see some insanely like complex buildings like assemblies. So for example, one of the characters, Valkyrie, in the Thor and the Valkyrie one, which is why I had them up, 3 parts to her head. So I do think lessons probably need to be learned that not everybody wants a really overly complicated miniature. To be fair, Star Wars Legion went to the sprue kind of way and was sort of doing this, so it's not exactly a revelation, but personally just want to throw this in there, that with great detail comes great responsibility. So you need to, I personally want to see sort of like more simplistic miniatures, but this is the Games Workshop style. It is what it is to have such a quality stuff. Now they may do things like, actually before I talk about that, let's also talk about the change to organized play. So they came out the other day and said organized play, we're going to be doing some narrative play, right? Which everybody's sort of okay with narrative play on its own. It's whether or not that has any impact on competitive play, because a lot of, let's face it, Star Wars Legion seem to be aiming towards competitive play, so competitive players are a little bit apprehensive. They're like, don't change the game I spent hundreds of pounds on. I may have gone to events and stuff like that. I really like it. Please don't change it. And, we have no indication of whether or not we're going to see any sort of dramatic changes there. But one thing that is interesting to note, that Marvel Crisis Protocol adopted a little bit of a banned and restriction list. It's not exactly like a lot of stuff, and I don't really know the impact of the particular things we're seeing on screen because I don't play the game. But restricted, you can only take, probably one of them, and banned, I guess you can't take it all. That's something that I could see being implemented in Star Wars Legion. It could be that maybe in a competitive sense, maybe when Tauntauns were broken, or whatever you want to call them, when people were complaining about them, maybe we could have seen a restricted, it actually says include 2 for opponents from the restricted list. Maybe we could have seen a restricted list and we could have seen Tauntauns on it, and you could maybe only take 2 instead of 3. That kind of stuff without necessarily changing the points or the rules could make it interesting. So we could see something like that. So, I think there's some reasons to be excited by the way that Atomic Mass Games have actually done their competitive scene, and I'll be definitely interested myself to see what they actually do. Now, they may do stuff like, and I'm not 100% sure about this because I don't play the game, but they may do things like change some of the rules to simplify them. So for example, a rule that it was a little bit controversial at the time, I don't really know how controversial it is now, but the rule for cover in Marvel Crisis Protocol was a little bit simple. It was like, if you're height this, you can see over height this, but if you're on this height, everything had like a height, and it wasn't like measured. It was like a car is height 2 or something like that. A player is height 1 or 2 or 3, depending on how big your monster is. And then it was sort of like the things, can you just see over it, etc. And for that, I make it sound simplistic, but in simplicity you have beauty sometimes, in that it really speeds the game up. A lot of people in Star Wars Legion, we've got silhouettes now. Some people don't like it, some people do. I think the game could probably benefit a little bit from being a bit more simplified. But with simplification, you have to increase abstraction. Like you lose a bit of realism by, having to imagine things like the silhouette, not realistic. But then again, neither is a character going like and not moving. So it's difficult. It's difficult. We are playing a game. You're going to get some gaming rules, and therefore, I think if you make simple but good rules, you can actually end up with some better gameplay. And one final thing I want to talk about is stock. Now, we don't know if the stock will change. I used to say, and people used to disagree with me all the time, I used to say that Marvel Crisis Protocol could be impacting the stock on Star Wars Legion. They were both owned by Asmodee. They both doing on sprues. Did they have one factory and a different factory doing other stuff? I do not know. I'm presuming that they don't own the factories, that maybe they rent them out, and maybe they pay another company to manufacture them. I have no idea. Either way, Asmodee was responsible for 2 games that were making similar products, and whether or not they were conflicting or not, I don't know. Now, we have Atomic Mass Games being responsible for both of them. So what could happen is, Legion's had a bit of a stock problem. What could happen is that now that they can combine forces and actually work together, maybe even closer, you could see a more smoother production schedule. What also could happen is that nothing could change because they maybe can't, there's a limited capacity and they can't fix it, kind of thing. But hopefully we'll see that kind of thing improve. Now, all of these changes, some of them are current, some of them are far away, maybe like better marketing. Have we seen that already? I'm not sure. We've seen the Q&A get released. We've seen the OP statement. We've seen a bit of communication sort of quite quickly. The changing models, it's very likely that these games have been planned for the last year. I doubt that anything in the year, in terms of like what models are going to get created, are going to change. It'll be beyond that. And we might not even actually get an announcement for that, within 2 years. That's how long these kind of things can take. So we'll have to wait and see. The rules could change. I was a little bit confused when they released the RRG 2.0 from FFG. I was a little bit confused by that because I would have thought 2.0 could have saved for Atomic Mass Games doing it. So we could see maybe a new updated rules release in like 6 months, something like that. And the organised play will obviously be whenever we all actually start playing organised play. So stock, on the other hand, probably no change for a minimum of 6 months, I would guess, because they're probably printing stuff now that's only going to get released in that far down the line. So I tried to talk about like immediate changes, but there are, in the long run, they might be like, oh, well, we're not doing sub-factions anymore. We used to talk about them, but we're not doing that. Or actually we're going to not do the new sequel trilogy, when maybe they were planning on doing it. All those kind of big decisions, we might never know. It depends how much they got around to it. But I think these are perhaps changes we might see soon-ish, trademark soon. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. A bit of a rambly video. I tried to add some notes, but it's difficult to be coherent and sensible. Have a most beautiful day. Like and subscribe. Goodbye.